mercy. Oh, no, please stop. Stop. You want to know if I'm that woman, right? I remember that day. The crowd, they were so angry. The men, they broke into my room. They dragged me down to the streets of the temple. My clothes were torn. My hair was a mess. I was so frightened. They started picking up stones in their hands and clenching their fists and shouting to everyone around that was watching, "She needs to die. She's a sinner." The leader of the mob, well, he was a religious known leader. He looked at me with disgust. He said I was pathetic and disgusting. There was no hope, no mercy, just hatred being hurled at me. I held my head down in shame because I knew that they were right. I am a sinner, and I was about to die. And then I saw him, that man that everyone was talking about. He was in the temple, and he was teaching. And my accusers dragged me over and threw me at his feet. They asked him what they should do with me. An adulteress caught in the act. They told him that the law commanded them to stone such a woman. And they waited to see what he would say. At first, he just bent down and he started writing something in the ground. But they kept questioning him. And then he stood and he said, "If any of you is without sin, let them be the first to cast a stone at her." But they kept on pestering him. But then he just swooped down and he started to write again. I don't know what he wrote. But when I looked up from where he was writing, I saw this hateful crowd start to leave one by one, dropping their stones and leaving until only he was left. I looked up and our eyes met, and shame swept across me. And I quickly looked away for fear of more condemnation. And then he told me, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No, sir," I said. And then he said, "No, neither do I condemn you." He didn't condemn me. I can hear kindness in his voice and love for me. And this time, when I let myself look into his eyes, my heart and my soul just sank inside. And this warmth and this peace flooded over me like I've never experienced before. Who was he? I didn't know at the time. But I knew that this man's pardon, this man's forgiveness, this man's compassionate grace freed me. So you want to know if I was that woman, right? The woman he saved that day? No, not anymore. That woman died. And I got a brand new life. I was lost. But then he found me. And my whole world has changed. And now I live to serve Jesus, the Christ. And now I live to honor him. Oh. I hated getting water at the well. I hated it. But I needed water. And we only had one well, so I had to go. Every day I would walk in the hot noonday sun to get water. I remember one time, the air was so muggy and sticky. I knew that day was going to be blistering hot. I thought, maybe I could be normal just once and sneak in with the other woman early in the morning and beat the hot noonday sun. Did I mention I hated getting water at the well? And that day, I should have just stayed at home being thirsty. The woman, they hated me. They whispered to one another about me. They told their children to stay far away from me. They told them I was dirty. Not long ago,
We were children ourselves. We were friends. We used to run around this well and play, helping our mothers gather water, smiling, laughing, living. But now, my mother was, and my father, he. It doesn't matter anymore. They're long gone. I've had to take care of myself for a long time now. And I did whatever I had to, right or wrong, all these years, thirsting for a better life. But now, this was my life, barely allowed to drink a cool cup of water with any dignity. I've had to bear the burden of feeling unworthy, bear the burden of the hot, blistering midday sun. But one day, my life changed forever. It was another hot day when I arrived at the well. I was alone, of course. But then, he came, this man. There was something different about him. He walked to the well, wiped his brow, and sat down at the edge of the well not far from me. I thought of turning around and taking the long walk back home. But I was so thirsty. At first, I was afraid. I learned a long time ago to be afraid of men, especially strange men like this stranger. You could tell he was a Jew. Jews hated us Samaritans. But this man, something told me not to be afraid of him. So I walked to the well slowly. I thought if I moved slow, he might not see me. And just as I was lowering my jar, he turned to me and he smiled. He smiled at me. No one had smiled at me in a long time. I don't even think I smiled back. I didn't even think I knew how to smile anymore. So I hurried up with my task, moving more quickly. This man, I didn't know what to think of him. And then he spoke to me. He asked me for a drink of water, and I almost dropped my jar. No man ever spoke to me, not in public, not unless they wanted something from me. I told him I was a Samaritan, a woman. I reminded him that he was a Jew. He smiled again. And as he was leaning in, he asked me if I wanted living water. Living water? He said if he gave me this living water, I would never thirst again. I thought he was crazy. But it sounded so good to never have to come to this horrible well again. So I told him, yes, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here. Then he dropped the ball. Go, call your husband and come back. He knew. I knew he knew. Was he testing me? Did he know that I didn't have a husband? In fact, that I had had many men in my life? Suddenly, I felt ashamed. That shame of a noonday walk to the well. I wanted to hide while standing right in front of him. But his eyes were so compassionate. It was as if he spoke into this dark part of my life, not to condemn it, but to tell me that he sees me. He knows me. And all I saw in his eyes was nothing but love for me without any condemnation at all. And then he told me something truly amazing. For ages, we have waited for God's chosen one, the Messiah. He asked me if I believed in that promise, and I told him yes, with all my heart. He smiled again, leaning in a little closer. He said to me, I, the one speaking to you, am he. And I had no doubt about it that he was the Messiah, standing right in front of me. I couldn't contain myself. I ran back into town forgetting my water jar, and I told everyone that I met the Messiah. I told them my story and they listened. They listened to me. They believed me. My life changed that new day since I met Jesus. I haven't been the same. I was so lost before I met Jesus. And when he found me, my soul drank in his living water, and he delivered me out of my shame. And now, I walk to the well each morning with my head held high, look for opportunities to share the love of Jesus with anyone who wants to listen.
Mirror, mirror, mirror on the wall, tell those lies pointing at your flaws. That isn't who you are. That isn't who you are. Might be hard to hear, but let me tell you, dear, you can see what I can see, then you would believe that isn't who you are. It's more to who you are. So when it's late, you walk away. Too much to take. Don't you ever get that in the pain. Can you break? Can you say, I see you dressed in white, every wrong made right. I see your rose in bloom at the sight of you. Oh, so priceless, irreplaceable, unmistakable, incomparable, darling, it's beautiful. It all of you, oh, so priceless. No matter what you heard, this is what you were. More than all the money, all the diamonds in the pearls. This is who you are. This is who you are. So when it's late, you walk away. You must take. Don't you ever get that in the pain. You can say